When to use and when not to use a police report in a personal injury case. In a typical personal injury case, you've got Paul stopped at a light or for pedestrians or something like that, and then you've got Dave not paying attention, and Dave crashes into Paul, and Paul is injured. So what happens? Well, the police may come to the scene, they may do a report, and Paul's going to hopefully at the scene have the opportunity to go and get the pictures of Dave's contact information, Dave's insurance carrier, Dave's policy number, and all the important information. Well, what if Paul was actually hurt, and instead of doing what he needs to do, he's being transported to the hospital? Well, in this particular case, Paul can order a copy of the police report, and on the police report, it's going to have the contact information for Dave, Dave's insurance carrier, possibly a policy number. It depends on jurisdictions, and obviously the police have to come out in order for there to be a police report. So what Paul can do in this circumstance is look at the police report and contact Dave's insurance carrier and say, hey, Dave's insurance carrier, Dave caused an accident. Dave caused me injuries. Dave needs to pay damages. And the insurance company is probably going to say, well, I don't know anything about that. And then Paul can say, look, I'm sending you the police report. So when the claims adjuster gets the police report, they're going to look at it, and they're going to probably be able to see that Dave was in fact cited for causing the accident. And then the insurance company can make its decision on liability, whether or not their client, their insured, was at fault for causing the accident. And it is very common if an insurance company sees a police report and the police report says that their insured driver was at fault, that the insurance company is going to find them to be at fault. This is not 100% of the time, but in most common circumstances, especially a rear-end collision, they're probably going to realize that their insured is at fault and they're going to have to pay some damages. So what else can the police report be used for? Well, you might think that if Paul decides he needs to go to trial, he can use the police report to show the jury that, hey, Dave's at fault and Dave needs to pay me. Well, courts have a lot of rules, and evidence is one rule that's got a lot of nuances to it. And without going into the actual evidence rules of civil procedure, suffice it to say that oftentimes the actual police report is not going to be allowed to be brought into evidence and shown to a jury. However, Paul is not sunk, because what Paul can do is call the police officer that prepared the report, and the police officer can testify and tell the jury what happened. Now, court might be a year or 2 years, maybe even more past the accident, and potentially the police officer has been to hundreds, if not thousands, of accident scenes since then. So is the officer going to remember everything? Maybe. But even if the officer doesn't remember everything, the officer can take the police report that the jury can't have, but the officer can use that report to refresh the officer's recollection of what happened. So the testimony of the officer will likely be very similar to what's actually in the police report. So Paul's going to be able to use the contents of the police report at time of trial. He just can't use it by publishing the report to the jury. He's going to use it by having the officer that prepared the report provide testimony to the jury about what actually happened.